Okay, so hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Healthy Business Leader Show. I'm very excited to say that I'm joined by Steve Smith, who is the founder of Poundland, and many other entrepreneurial, stories behind that. So, Steve, I normally do a pretty poor job of introducing my guests. So, if it's okay with you, do you want to just give us a bit about you and what you've done and bits like that would be great.
Yeah, so my name is Steve Smith. Married for 40 odd years, got three beautiful children and nine grandchildren. My journey started as a little boy. I used to enjoy going to the market store, Bilston Market, with my mum and dad. And it's on this market store where I learned to sell to customers and to buy. And it's on this market store where the idea from Poundland came from. Anything that came out of its original packaging was thrown in a cardboard box and sold for 10p. And this box took more money than anything else on the market store. It was on this market store where I learned the brightest store on the corner position, selling the right products at the right price took the most money. And while everybody else had 40-watt light bulbs, we had 150-watt light bulbs. So we had the brightest store on the market, and we attracted a lot of customers. So, and the journey, it's been a, and then on this market store, my father started to sell to other market traders because everybody could see we was busy. People will say, "Well, can you get me some?" And I'll always remember my father. 12 o'clock every Saturday, he'd go into the pub as soon as the doors opened, and he'd go and have a couple of whiskies, and he'd come back to the market store and start pitching. So the whiskey give him some Dutch courage, start pitching out to the crowd. Because what we found is, if you shouted out to the crowd, people would listen, and you start off. I'll always remember one band radios, where my dad would start off, he'll show the radio working, and he'll give me £5, £4, £3, £2, £1. And as he came down price, more hands went up. So what this learned me, there's no bad products, only bad prices. And then from the market store, we started doing, from Bilston Market, we started doing Wolverhampton Market, we started doing Walsall Market, and then Birmingham Market. And my father found that he could make more money working on a market store in one day than working all week in a factory where he used to be like a draftsman. So he gave his job up, and we did market stores full time. And at the time, we was living with my dad's parents because mum and dad couldn't afford an house. And in the week, I'd stop with my nan and granddad babysitting me. But the weekends, I was always on the market store. Oh God, from the age of 2 years of age.
Wow. Okay.
They tell me I used to play underneath the market store with all the rubbish, and then mum and dad, I used to, if I work well or hard, helped out, I used to get a dinky car at the end of the week. It was something to look forward to. And then from the market store, we started. My father opened. He used to store the products in my nan's garage. And I'll always remember as a little boy, my nan's garage was full, and my dad had bought a parcel of soldiers, toy soldiers. And I'll always remember him putting me up the attic, and we filled my nan's. This is when she was out. We filled my nan's attic full of soldiers. And she got to find out, and she went mad, and she says, "You've got to get a warehouse." And my dad opened a little warehouse in about 1980, in a place called Tipton in the West Midlands. And after his nickname, he called it Hooties Supplies. And again, when I used to finish, I used to go to school, and I used to go. Well, my first job in the morning, because we couldn't afford the alarm system, was to go to this little warehouse. We had an Alsatian dog that made sure nobody broke in. We cleaned the mess. So my job was clean the mess up of the dog, go to school, finish at 3:30, come back to the warehouse, do my own work on the floor, and as soon as I finished, I used to go and help out in the warehouse. And I used to load customers' van up. I used to go and fetch them products out to the storeroom, and I used to get like 20, 50 pence pocket money. So it was quite good, really.
Yeah.
And then I was lodged well at school because after school, lots of my friends used to come back and help my father in the cash and carry. We used to have my granddad used to check all the products in all the day, and all the boxes used to be up the road. And all my friends after school, we used to help get them into the warehouse. And my dad used to pay us in tip tops. Remember the tip tops?
No, what is that? You have to help me with that one.
It's like a tube what you put in the fridge with like a tip top, like a jubbly, is it?
Oh, okay, right, yeah, I know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I used to put these in the freezer, or
No,
um, or you just chew the end off, and it was like a drink
right,
inside,
got it.
like a,
I
a,
know, yeah,
a big thick straw full of
yeah,
juice, really.
yeah.
And then from there, I at the age of 15 or 16, to be honest, I've not got a clue. I know I took some exams, but I have not got a clue what I've got or what I took, because at the age of 15, I left school. I went straight into the cash and carry with my father, and I used to serve a lot of customers. And I started. My first job was sweeping the warehouse with a broom. So for the first few months, that was my job, to make sure the warehouse was nice and clean, and sweeping the warehouse and cleaning all the, putting all the boxes into a skip and the rubbish into a skip. And then from sweeping the floor, I used to then unload vans. I then used to help serve customers and get the orders out. And eventually, I then used to serve customers. And I've served some of my time. People. I always remember people used to come in and spend £200 or £300, and then over time they were spending thousands of pounds with us. There was a few. I always remember one of my customers was a guy called Chris Dawson, and he came from Plymouth, and I used to serve him in the cash and carry. Well, Chris Dawson now owns the range, the range
Yeah,
retail
yeah,
stores,
right.
which he's done really well. And it's great that a lot of people that started on market stalls or cash and carries like I did have gone into make successful businesses. My dad, we moved several warehouses, but eventually we moved into the Vono, which was the biggest. It was about 130,000 square feet. We turned over about £12 million a year, and at the time it was the biggest cash and carry in Europe.
Wow.
And I started going to college, to Wednesbury College, and this is where I met my wife. She was doing business studies, Tracy, and then I was doing business studies. Um, and my father used to say, one day the cash and carries will all be yours. And a typical week for me would be work Monday to Friday in the warehouse, work Saturdays on the market stalls. Sunday was half day trading, so we'd open up at 9 o'clock and finish about 4 in the afternoon. I'd then go back to the mother-in-laws, my Tracy's mum and dad, have dinner. At the night time, I'd be probably doing paperwork. A Thursday was late night opening. We used to open till 11 o'clock at night. So, you know, as a family, we did really work hard, but it wasn't work. We enjoyed what we was doing, really. And my granddad always used to say to me, "If you don't work, you don't eat," and that always stuck in my mind. And then, as I said, Dad said one day it'll all be yours. But 3 months after he told me that, I just got married to Tracy. We was expecting our first child, which is Katie, and he said, I've had an offer to buy Hooties, and I'm going to sell it. And as a family, we're all going to go to Mallorca and live there. And at the time, I was devastated because this was my life. I wanted to open up 10 of these cash and carries. But my dad had already agreed to sell it, and I had to stop for 3 months while my parents and family, my brother and sister, and my auntie and uncle, everybody went to Mallorca, but I stopped to hand over the business. And I'll always remember we was renting a place at the time. We sold our property, me and Tracy. We bought a trailer. We bought all our personal belongings, our photos, everything in the back of this trailer. We bought a one-way ticket. But on the day before, probably a couple of days before we was due out, my wife started to cry and said, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave my mum and dad. I don't want to leave my friends. We didn't tell mum and dad until we got to the airport, where they met us, and they was excited because they thought we was going to live there. But on the way back, we said, Mum, Dad, something we need to tell you. We're not stopping. We're going back. They was devastated, and we booked a 2-week holiday and a return ticket. Within this time, Dad was saying, "What are you going to do then if you're going back home?" And I said, "Well, I don't really know, Dad, because you've sold the business. You've sold Hooters, the business. I can't go back into that business because I'm contracted not to. So I think I'm going to go into retail stores." And I'll always remember just before Dad sold out, and this was at the age of 18, my parents was giving a lot of credit to retailers. Somebody would come in, spend £10,000, and say, "Well, I'll pay you next month." And I said, "Dad, if we're going to give credit, we might as well open a shop." And I remember at the age of 18, I had to go somewhere with my wife and that in West Bromwich, and I saw this shop in the King Square. And I thought, God, that's a good shop. So I phoned the landlord and I put a deep voice on, because if he could see I was 18 years of age, there's no way that he would let me have the shop. But I did the deal on the phone, and at the time the rent was £24,000 a year, which was a lot of money then. But I took the shop, and within the first year, it took over £1 million, and this became my father's biggest business. And it was called Steve Discount Market in West Bromwich in the West Midlands. So I said, "Dad, I can't go back into Uti, so I'm going to open some more shops up." And it was at this point my dad reminded me, "Do you remember on the market stall, that 10p cardboard box? Well, the pound coin had just been redesigned. And Dad said, 'Well, why don't you sell things for £1?' I thought, well, that's a great idea. And we came up with lots of names: Pound this, Pound time, Pound will, Pound everything. But the name we liked best was Poundland. So in April 1990, I came back to England. I've actually still got the scribble around that pool. It would have been nice if I could have showed you.
Yeah, I've seen it on the video. I've seen it, yeah.
It's actually on my website, stephensmith.com.
Yeah.
So it's all on there. But we did a scribble around the pool. I came back on the airport, leaving my parents, tears in my eyes, and my family, thinking, well, I'm going to start Poundland. My father loaned me £50,000 to do this, maybe because he was feeling guilty because he sold the family business. But I came back in April 1990. We found a little office in Sedgley above the Concord Market. I bought a second-hand desk, and at the time, a second-hand fax machine, because people were using fax machines.
Yeah.
And I went to tell everybody what I was doing, and when I told estate agents and landlords I wanted to sell things for £1, they said, "Well, it will never, how are you going to find enough products to sell for £1? How are you going to find the staff? How are you going to pay the big rents? It will never work." And at the time, my friend was doing art at college. So I asked him if he could do me a couple of paintings of what a Poundland would look like inside and out. And I'll always remember we had a couple of beers, and we was up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and he did me these watercolours of what it would look like, which is again on my website. And I think I gave him £20 at the time, which he was more than pleased with.
Yeah.
But I went out with the estate agent, and he took me from April till December to actually find the first store and convince a landlord to have a Poundland store. And I found a landlord that was struggling in the Octagon Centre in Burton-on-Trent. And what happened was I did the rent. It was a shell unit. It cost an absolute fortune to do the shop, to put the shop fit in, to put the floor, to put the air conditioning, to put the ceiling in. But it was a nice shop. It was next door to BT's. There wasn't many other retailers in that shopping centre, but with 648 different products, we opened the doors of the first Poundland on 13th of December 1990. And when we opened the doors, we took over £13,000 on the first day. Well, for that time, it was fantastic. And then from there, again, I thought, well, now I've got a shop, landlords will come and see me, and hopefully we'll get more shops. But that's not the case. Most of the big landlords of shopping centres are based in London. They won't get they won't they won't get in the car and come and have a look for one shop. So we did a brochure and we sent it out to all the landlords, but we were still struggling. So I was looking for a big break. And what I did was I asked the question, what is the best shopping centre in the country? And at the time, it's the Meadowhall Shopping Centre in Sheffield. The Meadowhall Shopping Centre in Sheffield. That was the best shopping centre in the country. And I found out who the owner was, and I drove him absolutely mad. I used to phone him 3 or 4 times a day until he answered the phone to me. And I got so many excuses, but I didn't give up.
Yeah.
And I managed to speak to him, and he said, what can I do? I says, I've got a brand new concept. I want to come and see you. And he was busy, but a couple of weeks after, I got an appointment. And we went down the day before, and at the time, by this time, Dave Dodd he used to work for my father on the watch counter, and Dave joined me, and he took a massive cut on his wages because he also believed in the concept, and obviously he worked with me and Dad in Hooties, so he knew that we was capable of taking it forward. But he come and join us, and I'll always remember stopping the night before in Meadowhall Shopping Centre. Me and Dave slept in the back of the car, and we walked the centre to find out. Oh God, this is a great centre. Where could we put a Poundland store? And we found the best place for a Poundland was called the High Street, which was in the centre, but there was no shops available. And we thought, well, maybe he's got some shops for us. So next morning, had a wash. I think we went into the men's toilet into the centre, had a quick wash, went to do our presentation. There's about 10 or 11 people came into the room. We did the presentation, and he said 2 things. He said, 1, I love the concept, but 2, I've got no shops in the centre. We are full,
Right.
so I can't help you. And this is why it was so important to do your own work properly, and this coming down the night before, because we had identified a big shop that would suit us, and it was called the Video Magic Shop. And at the time, videos, people going to these blockbuster shops and all that, video hire was massive.
Yeah.
So people go and collect the videos, but nobody enjoyed taking them back. You probably end up giving your wife or your partner to take back.
Yeah, someone drop it back, yeah.
And at the time, there was video streaming came out, so we thought we can't see this going forward this time of concepts. And we said that to him, and he said, "You've done your own work. If it comes available, it's yours." And about 8-9 weeks after, we got a phone call from him. Steve, Dave, he was right. It's empty. The shop is yours. Okay, so we said we'd have it.
Right. Now you're on.
Now we're on.
Yeah.
What we didn't realise is, I mean, at the time, if you take in consideration, my dad had the biggest cash and carry in Europe, and he was paying £120,000 a year rent, and this was massive. Here was a little shop in Meadowhall Shopping Centre, 2,000 square feet, and the rent was 130,000 a year.
Wow.
And the service charge was 80,000 a year, and then the rates. So this one shop was £250,000 a year.
Wow.
And I phoned Dad up and I said, Dad, we're thinking about taking this shop. And he says, you're absolutely crazy. How can a shop be possibly that much? He said, you better come over and see me. There you go, come over. We haven't seen you for ages. Come over with Trace and let's talk about it. So we went over there and then showed him the photos and showed him everything. He said, oh, there's no way I'd pay that much. But at the time, there was a dustman there what came to empty the rubbish, and Dad would always give him a coffee or tea or a sandwich before we carried on. And he was listening to the conversation. And Dad said to the dustman man, what would you do? And the dustman said, I would have the shop. So my dad says, okay, that's done then. So we come back. So we come back to England and we open the shop. And me and Dave, we worked 54 hours to get this shop open. And oh God, I had 2 or 3 calls off Dad saying, I can't believe you've done it. And I had a call off Dad, said, I'm coming the opening's tomorrow. I've got to come and see this shop. So he came to England for a week's break to see this shop, and I'll always remember we for Burton-on-Trent, we had a big Dayglow card sign, grand opening. The shopping centre opened at 9 o'clock. We had a grand opening 9:30. Let the crowds build up, and we'll open the doors, and then that's it. So to save the money, we used the same Dayglow card on the shop window. Grand opening 9:30. Well, at 9:30, there was one person outside the shop, and my dad was there. How much have you paid for this shop? So me and Dave, as I said, we worked 54 hours with no sleep. That was, it's hard to, keep awake for 3 days without any sleep, but we did. But we wanted to get the shop open. And I'll always remember we went into the food court, we sat down at McDonald's, had a bacon roll and a cup of coffee. And we said to the manager, we can't believe it today. We've got this shop opening. It's so expensive in the shop. And there's one customer waiting to get in outside. And he said, Steve, the shopping centre don't open till 10. So there's a schoolboy error. So
Right.
we did our own work finding the store, but we didn't even bother to find out what time the shopping centre opened. And we come back at 10:05, and I'll always remember my dad was stood outside the shop. You couldn't get inside. It was absolutely packed out. And that week we took over £140,000,
Wow.
which was absolutely amazing. And from there, um, the dream become, well, obviously when I first opened the shop, 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, a billion, yeah. And Meadowhall was our biggest break because we got a shop in Meadowhall shopping centre. When we went out to the landlords now, we used to say, if Poundland's good enough for Meadowhall shopping centre, it's good enough for your shopping centre. And other landlords couldn't believe he's Poundland. We've only got 2 shops and they're in the Meadowhall shopping centre. They couldn't believe it. And from there, we grew 5 shops, 10 shops. We opened a big warehouse. We moved the warehouse several times. Eventually, we moved on the Black Country route. It was about 260,000 square feet. I designed it to turn over £500 million. By this time, we had about 7,000 or 8,000 people working for us. Up to 1,000 people, I used to send everyone a birthday card or Christmas card. After 1,000 people, it gets very difficult. We run the business as a family business, so I would never ask the staff to do what I wouldn't do. We all mucked in, and even the directors, I made sure they were going into the stores and spend time on the tills and work with the staff. And I was very proud because I got voted at the time as Britain's best boss. And one of the things I did here, really, which was different to what other people do, I got all the staff would interview their boss, not me or the manager. Yeah. So if we had a new director starting, the people coming for the job was amazed because I didn't interview them. The people below them interviewed them. And we did all the way through the business, and that worked really well because the staff can't moan. Well, you set them on.
Wow, that's
And
incredible.
and then because the bosses appreciated they did, and all the way down, all through the business, it was a big family business, and we all got on. We had good fun. Kept politics out of it, so that was good. We had lots of Christmas parties. I'll always remember. We had a big Christmas party in Wolverhampton. We had about 4,000 people came, and we had Bobby Davro, and we the Poundland people know how to party. Um, but we travelled the world. I mean, I used to love buying. I travelled the world. We used to have offices in Hong Kong. We had offices in India. We had offices in China. I tried to learn Chinese. It killed me. I know
You
quite a
learn
few.
it or?
I learned quite. You learn the basics, and it's quite like, too expensive or too quality. But I suppose for us, really, it's although Poundland's an easy concept, we keep it easy where we take the money because everything is £1. But the back office system is very complex because, imagine we've got products from all over the world coming at the right time. We've got lots of seasons: Halloween, we've got Christmas, we've got Easter, we've got all these different seasons. And if we don't get things right, so for example, if we, customers are no fools, for a few pence they'll go next door. I like to give value for money, and if we make a mistake, if we didn't get the price right, there was only one way to go for us, and that was two for a pound. Well, if we went two for a pound, we'd lose a lot of money. So the systems, the buying systems, the distribution systems, the EPOS systems, all the systems for Poundland are mainly designed and built with my team myself. So the systems are a really important part of, being able to scale Poundland up and being able to, get the right products at the right time, into the shops. People, it wasn't me that built Poundland; it was my people. It wasn't just me; it was all of us, really. I'm very proud. I'm very proud that people came to me as a YTS people or left college, and some of these people went on to, manage the Hong Kong office or directors, or quite a few of them have ended up being multimillionaires with the positions, as they've grown with the business. Um, so it was really great, and again to have stores all across the country. And what I'm very proud of is, when we first, I'll always remember in that first Poundland shop in Burton-on-Trent, people used to go buy products off us. Then they used to go in Beatties, and they used to put our carrier bag into a Beatties carrier bag so people couldn't see them shopping in the Poundland. But it's amazing how things have changed over time.
Yeah.
Going to Poundland is smart. We got the branded products, the reduced products. If you're not, why are you paying more? You smart shoppers, and it's amazing how many people we've had. Oh God, we've had Britney Spears. We've had the Miss World. We've had so many celebrities. We've got photographs that have been in the Poundland. And what I am proud of is 85% of the population have either been in the Poundland or purchased something from a pound shop, really. So I'm very proud. Most of the country have seen the concept. So it's just been an amazing journey. So from being on the market store to traveling the world to opening all the shops to having such a great team of people to meeting the Queen to being able to my journey working in Downing Street with a few prime ministers to working a couple of times with people like Richard Branson or Alan Sugar or Stelios from EasyJet or going to the polio match with Prince Charles and his two boys. It's just amazing how the journey, from a market store, how the journey pans out. And there's not much I haven't done in my life. And a lot of times you have to stop and think. I remember 7.5 years ago, I was in Dubai. I flew on a friend's private jet. Then I flew to Dubai for my friend's 50th birthday. And while I was in Dubai, I was sorry. I've been looking since Poundland. I've been looking for the next £1 billion business.
Right.
And there's a couple of businesses I'm working with at the moment, and that's the mobile payment. So you pay on your phone. When I first started with Poundland, 99% was cash. Then it went to credit cards. I think the future is mobile payments on your phone. And I'd gone on to Emirates airplane. There's about 650 people on the plane. Still the same as the small planes. You look in the catalogue. There's probably 40 or 50 products you can buy. If everybody wanted one, they wouldn't have enough on the plane and the weight. And I thought to myself, well, they've got Wi-Fi on the plane. They've got 8 hours to shop. Why can't people shop on the plane? When they land in Dubai, the biggest duty-free in the world, they can collect the carrier bag. They pay for the products.
Yeah.
And so I flew to Oman to talk to Emirates with this because one of my friends his sister was the marketing director of Emirates. And they says, oh, that's a great idea, Steve. Let's try a 5 million passenger trial. So I came back to Dubai, excited, back to my friends, back to my friends, and I thought, "Oh, that's fantastic!" But because I flew so many times, I had a blood clot,
Right.
and the next thing I found, I was in intensive care in the hospital, and I was told I had 3 hours to live.
Where was the blood clot, Steve? Was it in your leg or?
Yeah, so the blood clot was from the back of my legs. It broke off and it went all into my lungs. So all my lungs was all blocked. I could hardly breathe. And because of this, they thought I had 3 hours to live. Within these 3 hours, I mean, if I'm honest with you, so although I've had a lot of experiences in my life, 5 or 10 minutes thinking about them all, you've thought about of everything you've done from meeting my wife to my first child born to the first shot to all your experience, and you're still alive. So you have to start accepting I'm going to die, but I've had a good life, and it falls in two categories: the stuff you got control over and the stuff you haven't. So the stuff I got control over, I'd have loved. I should have gone to the Maldives, but I never found time to. I wish I'd done that, but I didn't. And the stuff you haven't got control over, I'd have loved to go to my son's wedding, but that's his choice, not mine. And within these 3 hours, because I had to start accepting it, we found a test drug that would give me a 10% chance of living. This drug was only about £700 or £800, but what cost the money was £21,000 to fly it in by private jet.
So you made it happen, obviously.
And that's and that's my strap line. Let's make it happen. So we made it happen. We flew the test drug in, between my wife, and my friends' 50th helping us to achieve this. And my wife tells me when she was trying to pay for it with a credit card, the credit card wouldn't go through, so she was panicking.
Where was the drug? Where was it, Steve? Where was it, in Europe somewhere or?
Yeah, yes. So we had to fly it in from Europe, but it gave me a 10% chance to live in. There was actually two other people that was in at the same time as me. I don't know, but I was told those two people died.
Right.
Maybe it was a different case than what I had, because why didn't you fly more of this drug in then? They only told us after. But the end result is I'm here to tell the tale. But now I try and do the things I've got control over. So I've done Maldives. I drive my wife mad. If there's anything I haven't done before, so for example, I got a phone call, Steve. We're looking at making a Bollywood film. We're looking for a house to do it in. Do you know anyone? Yeah, do it in my house. So
Brilliant.
we've had there's a Bollywood film being made at my previous house, which was fantastic. I used to come back of the night and 300, 400 people making this in between a Mission Impossible and a James Bond Bollywood film. So it was great to watch it. So if there's anything I haven't done, I always say yes and drive my wife mad. I'm here to tell the story. Since I've sold, so I'll always remember in the warehouse on the Black Country, one of our suppliers, we'd moved. Here was another story for you. We was moving to the biggest warehouse I've had in my career, and what happened is as we was moving, we bought a piece of land, and on this piece of land is where my dad used to work before he was at the market stall, which was amazing. On this piece of land is where my nan met my granddad.
Oh, wow.
And I bought it freehold. It was about 12 acres of land, and I built the warehouse to turn over £500 million. And in between us building this warehouse, I used to go over Sunday afternoon, and I used to, with the builders, and it was built. But what happened? It was late. It was due to open September, but it didn't get open till January because we found the solicitors made a mistake. We found right in the middle of the land, somebody owned a piece of land, which wouldn't and hold us to ransom for
How
it.
big was the piece of land inside of your land then?
Oh God, about 10 foot square. It was nothing.
Couldn't put a tent on it. Okay.
Yeah. Oh God. So we had to pay him off, but we finally agreed. But what that did, all the stock that was coming from all over the world, we couldn't get into the warehouse, we couldn't get in the shops. And in between opening this warehouse, one of our top suppliers came to see me and said, Steve, I thought he came to sell me some stock, but he come 7 o'clock one night, and I said, what can I do for you? And he went, I want to buy Poundland. And he gave me a cheque for £20 million. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting it. And I said, oh, can I come back to you tomorrow? And can I think of me come back to you tomorrow? Well, as soon as he went, I found Dad and I found Dave, and they went, my dad said, take the money. Take the
Quick
money.
release.
And I said, Dad, I'm not ready. I've still got the warehouse opening. I've still got the shops opening. I've got an office open, a new office opening in India. Dad, I'm not ready. He called me a greedy bugger, and he actually put the phone down on me. Anyway, I didn't take the money. I told the supplier, and he said, look, I says, I'm busy between now and Christmas. I'll come back in January. Well, because the warehouse was late, we couldn't get a stock to the shops, and he came back in January. He looked around the warehouse, he loved it, and he came into the boardroom. He says, now show me your turnover. Well, because we couldn't get the stock to the shops, the turnover had dropped, and that year we'd made no profit. And he said to me, have you still got my cheque? And I went, yes. And I'll always remember, he took the cheque off me, and I used to look at this cheque every day thinking, I should have done it. And as he took the cheque off me, he ripped it up, put it in the bin, and his words was, thank God I didn't do it. And he took me about 2 hours to phone Dad and Dave after that, because the first was, have you done it? And I went, no, he's put it in the bin, Dad. And he said, I told you, you should have done it. Well, I'll always remember Christmas Eve. My wife phoned me, and I normally I go back Christmas about 8 o'clock, but it was about 9:30 at night, and I hadn't gone back because I was walking around the warehouse, and we had 11, 12 million pounds worth of Christmas stock left over, and I was thinking, how the hell am I going to pay for this? We're going to go bankrupt. And I'll always remember, thinking, what the hell am I going to do? And this is where we had a new shop opening in Liverpool, our biggest store, 15,000 square feet. So what I did, I invited all of our top suppliers. And I hired a coach, and we went down to Liverpool and showed them the shop opening. And then we come back to the warehouse, and I showed them around the warehouse, and I loved the warehouse. And then I took them into one of the big rooms, and we did the presentation to them. And I said, what do you think about the new shop opening? Went, fantastic, Steve. What do you think about the new warehouse? Fantastic, Steve. Well, I've got a problem. And they says, what's your problem, Steve? I says, well, because the warehouse was late, I've got 11 million pounds worth of Christmas stock, and I can't afford to pay for it. And I'll always remember one of the suppliers, which I bought off him from Hooties and then Poundland, said, Steve, how can we help? And I said, I need you to freeze your payments. I owe you money from all the money off all the stock I bought off you for the new shops and what's sitting in the warehouse. I need you to freeze your payments for 90 days. And it only took one of them to say, I'm with you, Steve, and they all put their hand up and says, we're all with you.
Wow, that's incredible.
And if it wasn't for the suppliers, Poundland would have gone bankrupt then. So I always tell everyone, suppliers are as important as customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people don't realise that. And other advice, I always say, other advice always saying, if you're thinking about opening your own business, make sure you work for somebody before you do it. If I had to work for my dad, I want to open Poundland or being half as efficient as I did. So work for somebody else before you start your own business. I always say there's no bad products, only bad prices. Again, find the price a product sells at to sell them, and then go and find the product at the price to make your margin. Sometimes people just buy a product and put their margins on top and expect them to sell. Yeah, there's no bad products, only bad prices. If you don't look after your staff or your customers, somebody else will look after them. So make sure you look after your staff and customers. Um, got the yeah. Let's make trust is the biggest word in the dictionary. Yeah, yeah. Trust is the biggest word. Um, God, there's so many there's so many things. I mean, a lot of it I do put on my website, but the thing is, it wasn't me that created Poundland. It was my people. Um, Making sure you're giving value for money to the customers. Customers are no fools. Um, Finding ways of making things simple and easy. Um, Cash is king. You got to make sure you look after your cash. Poundland, we grew Poundland on £50,000 loan for my dad. Um, 6 months, 6 months after I turned that £20 million, I was at a breakfast meeting. I used to like to go to breakfast meetings at 7 in the morning. I used to love to meet lots of other people, especially suppliers and what they're doing. And I'll always remember I went to a breakfast meeting, I had a bacon sandwich, 7 in the morning, met this guy, and he says, who are you? And he used to have I used to have like this leaflet in my pocket. I used to get it out and show people Poundland and what we do and all that. And he said, "Oh, I love that. Can I come and see you?" And he came and saw me. This was 6 months after we turned the £20 million out. He walked all the way around. Whereas next day, we had an offer for £50 million.
Wow.
And I phoned my father, and my father says, "What are you going to do now?" Well, if I'm honest with you, I didn't want to disappoint my dad, and I suppose everyone again. But and this is something else I also tell people: get the balance right. And what I mean by get the balance right is, I used to go out in the morning. My daughter Katie was asleep. I used to get back home from work, and she was asleep. And before you blink your eyes, she was 16 years of age.
Mm.
So you've got to be a good dad. You've got to be a good partner, or husband or wife, and you've got to be a good business person. If you can get that balance around on those three things, it's really important. Something else I always teach people as well. The first thing I do after the new year, I sit down with the wife and we get our diaries out, our calendars out, and we go, okay, this year, when do you want to go away? And we'll put the holidays in. Okay, have we got any things coming up with the kids? Okay, let's put those in. Our friends and family, have we got any of them? And it's amazing how the business fits around everything, and you are able to do everything if you plan it first. Yeah.
So, but before though, obviously business was the priority, right? So was that
Yes,
family side of things put to the
yes,
back?
I used to be out in more, but what I'm saying is, if you can get the balance right,
Yeah,
and a lot of examples of this, it's amazing. You think about, if you're going away, if you know you're going away next week, it's amazing how much more you achieve this week.
yeah,
No,
to get
you're
it
going
done.
away next week because you get
Yeah,
it done.
yeah.
You work smarter, cleverer. You get everybody else around you doing, getting things done. So you work a lot smarter. And to be honest, when I sold Poundland, um, when they agreed to buy it, while the due diligence was happening, I had 3 months before it was dead. And every penny made went more on the bottom line. And it's amazing. Our range at the time, we had about 30,000 different products. I brought the range down to 3,000 products, and we turned over and made more money. So it's amazing how smart you can be when you
Yeah.
know there's an event happening. So we sold out in all our shares were sold in 2006. We probably combined, we probably got 70 million out of the business. When I sold, Dave got his share. Obviously, I got a share, but my dad and mum lent me 50,000. I give mum and dad half the money I got. which they then, with that money, came back to England. They bought a beautiful home, like a stately home, not far from where I live today. Yeah, and all my family come back. So get the balance right. Since I've sold Poundland, well, when I sold Poundland, I think I was retired for about 3 weeks. Um, I was trying, and what happened was, if you imagine, we've come, I've come from working with 7 or 8 thousand people, going out every day and traveling the world to try and find product. And it's amazing what we've found in the past. We've sold golf clubs for £1. We've sold 6 foot desks for £1. It's amazing what you can get for £1. Um, yeah, yeah, and I was trying to. So I've come from 7 or 8 thousand people to back just to my wife, and I was trying to tell her how to cook an egg. And she said, "Look, I've cooked an egg for last. I've cooked an egg. I
I've been
don't
all
need."
right. I've been okay.
So she told me to go and get her a job. So with that, looking for the next £1 billion business. I'm involved with lots of businesses. I've helped lots of entrepreneurs. I've done a lot of competitions. I've done the entrepreneurs. Some time ago, we won Entrepreneur of the Year for the country, which then I had to go to Palm Springs and compete in America for the awards and that, which we did really well. But I've been a judge for Amazon Awards, so I do a lot of awards. Yeah, I'm involved with mobile payments. So we're in about 3,500 hospitality. We do EPOS and you can pay on your phone. So we do restaurants and hotels and all that. I'm a big passion for software. The guys that design the systems are designed in Poundland. We still work together on new software. We do software now for care homes. We're in about 2,000 care homes. So we do all the HR, payroll. We do training records. We do apps for nurses to go look after people at homes. I'm involved with solar power.
Yeah.
So we've got 3 or 4 thousand installations to do at the moment. So we're really busy with it there. We do a lot of property. We've got about 100 houses we rent out. So that's quite good. I'm involved with mortgages. So we've got a company called quickmortgages.com. We do mortgages for police, for the armed forces. Again, where I used to save, I could save somebody, if pennies or 10p or 20 or 50p on that item. Now I enjoy saving. I try my best to try and save them thousands off their mortgages.
Right.
Because a mortgage is one of the biggest things you're ever going to purchase, really, or have. So I enjoy doing that. I do bridging loans, a company called Bridging.com. Since we've done that, since I've sold Poundland, been doing bridging, we've done over £500 million worth of business loans. So that's going quite well. And as I say, I help lots of entrepreneurs and know a lot of people, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's one hell of a journey, that one, Steve. How's life for you now then? Are you just as busy or not quite so busy? You got different framing on how you work now? Or?
Well, as I said, my granddad said, if you don't work, you don't eat. So it's always drove me. I see so many opportunities. Oh God, I've got so many friends who have also done well. We try and I nearly died 7 years ago, so I'm looking at businesses at the moment for health. So I love the phrase, like everything's a pound is a phrase, but I like the phrase at the moment. Health is wealth.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you've got your health, you've got your wealth. Yeah. So I'm working with people at the moment on health for blood sampling and different health things at the moment, which hopefully that can go forward. No, I don't. I enjoy what I do, really. And I suppose if I wasn't doing what I was doing, I'd drive my wife mad, really.
Eggs again, something else.
but as life goes, you expect, well, your kids grow up, and then you think, oh God, we'll go travelling, but then you've got your grandchildren, so the wife spends a lot of time babysitting,
Yeah.
and we've got lots of friends. We still keep in contact with a lot of people that work for us at Poundland. 15 months ago, I sold. I, I tried to get Poundland into going to the online business, and I'll always remember people wanted £1 million for poundshop.com because although we had Poundland, people used to say I'm going to the pound shop, so it used to drive me
Yeah.
mad.
Yeah.
So when I was able to buy 7 years ago poundshop.com for 5 grand, I thought, oh, that's a great buy. And I thought, oh God, there's a great opportunity. And I got my sons to start a company, Pound Shop,
Yeah.
which was the online business. And we started it 7 years ago. We built it up. And where the average spend in the shop was £5 or £6, online it was £52. And 15 months ago, we sold it to Poundland. My two boys, Ashley and Joe, now still work for Poundland. So Joe works in IT, and Ash, he still works in the buying for Poundland. So we're still, my family's still working
You
Poundland.
pass on that entrepreneurial spirit that your dad gave you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking for the next £1 billion business, but at the time goes by so quick. My friend says, Steve, one day I was 40 and the next day I was 80, and that's how fast time goes by. And
Mm.
when I was on my deathbed, all them years went by in 10 minutes when you think about them. So you've got to enjoy what you're doing. You've got to get the balance right. If anyone says, if you tell anyone your idea and people laugh at it, the chances are they're laughing because they never thought about it, and the chances are it's going to work.
Yeah.
So don't give up. Imagine how many people laughed at me when I said I was going to sell things for £1,
Yeah.
but nobody had seen that cardboard box and how busy it was. And don't give up. Don't give up your dreams. Find a way of making it happen. What drives me mad, people, it's easy to say no. What's hard is to say yes to something.
Yeah.
But you got to stick at it and make it work. And something else I used to learn my people really is, how many mistakes have you made today? And they'll go, well, none today. Well, you haven't learned anything then, have you?
Yeah.
you,
Failure part of what you learn from, right?
you got to learn. Make as many mistakes as you can. Make mistakes and learn from them. And that's what an entrepreneur. Somebody said to me, "What is an entrepreneur?" An entrepreneur is somebody that makes. He comes up with loads of ideas, and sometimes he's right.
Less often than not, though, right?
Oh, so funny.
Yeah.
But don't give up and find other people who is like-minded to work with you, that you enjoy working with. So now, these days, I only work with people I enjoy working with and trust.
Yeah.
So it's not about the money, and it's about the journey and the people you work with, and the laughs you have. When I was on my deathbed and look back, I never thought, well, do you remember that? Do you remember that Bentley I bought, or do you remember that boat I bought? You remember the simple things, where when like I remember, like back in Burton on Trent, where with the staff, I designed a trolley. I've designed a trolley. It was a trolley. We put the box on there. We'll put the black bag on the front. We put the empty cardboard in here, and then it was delivered. And I was so excited. I thought I did a great job. But when we went to put the trolley on the lift, it was 5 inches too long. So you think
Yeah.
it's all those little things where you
Yeah.
you laugh, and it's the journey of working with people
Yeah.
and seeing people go forward really. But I'm proud that up to 15 months ago, some of the people that used to work for my dad in Hooties, that then worked for me in Poundland, who then went on and worked for me in Pound Shop. Some of the people have worked for the family for 45 years or more.
That's incredible. Wow. So you place a lot. You like those relationships, right? You get those trusted relationships, and
It's a relationship, and something else. If I give anyone or why I've done well, it's not what you know, it's who you know
Yeah.
is important. And for example, let's say, so Cameron, let's say we met today. So me, I would go back in my contact book and put a note about what we've done today, what you do, what we've done, and then I would I'd file it. I'll always remember, years ago when when I first started the Poundland shop, Burton on Trent. I met a photographer, and he says, and he did some photos for me, mate. Oh God, he knows what he's doing. He's really good. And I made a note, so give me a card. I put it in my book. About 5 or 7 years after, I need a photographer. And what I normally do is phone the guys up who I've met who thought, God, these guys are good, and say, what are you doing now? And I'm doing this. Or do you fancy a job?
Yeah.
And a bit like the guy who I met at the breakfast meeting, who I sold Poundland to, or the photographer I met to give a job. When you meet people, don't just put the card in the bin or put it on the side and forget. You need to spend a little bit of time just writing something about him, because I use people that I've met 20, 30 years ago.
That little black book of contacts, right? It's so powerful, isn't it?
It's so powerful. And again, if you meet somebody good, yeah. And also, people move on. So people are, people that have, at the moment, most of our business for Max Time, which is the care homes, when they leave to go and work for somebody else, you know, they keep in contact with us, and we do most of it is word of mouth. Really, we don't spend much money on that. Well, apparently we didn't know advertising, and some of the companies I'm involved with, it's all word of mouth through who we know.
Wow. Incredible. Well, Steve, I really enjoyed that. It was such a powerful conversation. I really appreciate you sharing your story and experience. Anything else that you'd like to these bits of advice are amazing, but anyone that's watching this that's entrepreneur, any little last bits of tidbits of
No,
information?
I've talked a lot. Cameron, have you got any questions? Final questions, or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a business owner, right? So I'm always having these conversations. That entrepreneurial journey for me is the most kind of exciting part, because when you're in it, when you're starting out, when you're kind of growing the business, there's these little moments where you think, oh shit, this is going wrong. What do I do? So hearing people like yourself talk about those moments where things nearly stopped and you just worked it out and kept going, they really inspire me to keep moving forward, definitely.
Well, one question for you, Jim. You've got to find out what you're good at. I mean, I'm good at. I think I'm good at buying. If you get the buying right, everything's right. So find out what you're good at, and more important, what you're not good at. I
Yeah,
don't like. Do I like doing paperwork? No. So employ people to do the jobs you're not good at, but keep doing what you're good at. I'll remember with my journey as it got bigger and bigger and bigger. I started giving. I love buying, but I started. Because I was the MD, you end up doing all the jobs you don't enjoy doing, or you're not so good at.
yeah,
I probably wish I put an M. I probably wish I put a managing director or CEO, and me carry on buying. Yeah.
yeah,
So do what you find out what you're good at, and you do what you're good at, and make sure you surround yourself with people that are better than you,
yeah,
doing the jobs that you don't want to do.
yeah.
If
So
you want to
important,
grow
isn't it?
quickly.
Otherwise, as your business grows, I guess you end up being putting yourself in the CEO role, but you're not a CEO really. You don't know what the ins and outs of how to do that, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, thanks again. I'm going to hit finish now, but thank you very much for your time. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Cameron, and thank you for inviting me on the show. Thank you.
Brilliant.